It looks like Marjorie Taylor Greene has finally reached her breaking point with her own party. She'd taken to Twitter today writing, "Only 20% of Americans are on X, and this is where the political industrial complex controls a hive mind with hyper-partisan politics. It's toxic, hateful, and divisive. Many accounts are paid, and many are foreign, and they post and comment all day with targeted talking points in order to sway your opinion. However, it's not real life. Real life exists without a phone, tablet, or computer. Real life is tangible, involves relationships with people, productive work, and all the fun, amazing adventures the beautiful world has to offer. Real life among common Americans is what holds this country up and where the solutions for our future reside. Most of all, it's where happiness is." And by the way, she's not wrong about what she's saying. I've said repeatedly that being online is unhealthy, even as someone who relies on people being online to make my living. If I could give any advice to folks who feel exhausted, it is to step away from social media and be with actual humans having actual conversations in the actual world. But that PSA aside, right-wing commentator / provocateur Mike Cernovich responded to her tweet, writing, quote, "You need to serve out your full term." Well, that didn't exactly sit well with Greene, who it seems didn't enjoy being told what to do by this keyboard warrior. She responded, "Oh, I haven't suffered enough for you while you post all day behind a screen? Do I have to stay until I'm assassinated like our friend Charlie Kirk? Will that be good enough for you then? Shitposting on the internet all day isn't fighting. Get off your ass and run for Congress. I fought harder than anyone in the real arena, not social media. Put down your little pebbles and put your money where your mouth is." First of all, she's not wrong. And to her credit, Greene has been consistent lately about the danger that she's faced in the aftermath of Trump's public attacks against her. In fact, just weeks ago, when Trump publicly lambasted her, unendorsed her, and called for a primary opponent against her, Greene then took to Twitter writing, quote, "I am now being contacted by private security firms with warnings for my safety as a hotbed of threats against me are being fueled and egged on by the most powerful man in the world, the man I supported and helped get elected. Aggressive rhetoric attacking me has historically led to death threats and multiple convictions of men who were radicalized by the same type of rhetoric being directed at me right now, this time by the President of the United States. As a woman, I take threats from men seriously. I now have a small understanding of the fear and pressure the women who are victims of Jeffrey Epstein and his cabal must feel." And the reality is, as Greene is alluding to, Trump has validated the use of political violence as a tool to benefit himself. He's promised to pay the legal bills of those who beat up protesters. He's called for roughing up those who disrupt his rallies. He's refused to condemn the Proud Boys on the debate stage, instead offering them a rally call. He's incited a mob to storm the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. He then pardoned those very insurrectionists, thereby effectively legalizing violence in the eyes of anybody who comes to his aid. When I call Donald Trump a fascist, this is in large part why. Using the threat of violence to achieve your political ends is not democratic behavior, it is that of Putin's Russia or Kim Jong-un's North Korea. So if Greene wants to publicly acknowledge what the left has said for so long, good on her. If it helps to think of it not as you agreeing with Greene, but Greene agreeing with you, then that might be more helpful. But regardless, it is a good thing, politically speaking, if Marjorie Taylor Greene acknowledges that Donald Trump and his base of support will use violence as a political tool and acknowledges that objective reality for everyone to see. Now, with that said, let's also not pretend that Greene herself didn't perpetuate the very system that she is now condemning. Here's a video, for example, that she released on January 5th, 2021.
Just finished with our meetings here at the White House this afternoon. We had a great planning session for our January 6th objection. We aren't going to let this election be stolen by Joe Biden and the Democrats. President Trump won by a landslide. Call your House reps, call your senators from your states. We've got to make sure they're on board, and we already have a lot of people engaged. Okay, stay tuned.
And of course, January 6th, the very next day, was marked by a violent insurrection, exactly the kind of violence that everybody knew was going to take place. Trump himself said of January 6th, "Be there will be wild." So while I sympathize with what Greene is going through right now, let's not sit here and pretend that she didn't help foster the very system that's turning against her today. This is a common theme on the right. They will happily feed the beast only until the moment that the beast turns against them, and suddenly their morality comes flooding back in. All of these members of the Leopards Eating Faces party suddenly shocked when the leopard eats their face. In fact, she breathlessly backed Donald Trump while he was busy attacking Democrats like Jasmine Crockett, for example, who's dealt with the attacks for years that Greene has contended with for just several weeks. Here, Jasmine Crockett is discussing that issue during an in-person discussion that we had. We are in a much different political environment than we have been in the past, and I share the same thoughts about that. I started doing what I do 10 years ago, and it was a much safer world than I think we're in right now. But how are you doing on that front in light of the fact that you're a public figure in a world where there's a lot of political violence going on, and that we have to look over our shoulders now in ways that we might not have had to before?
Yeah. So I minimize how much I know. I have no notifications on my phone. None. So I've got lots of followers on lots of platforms, and X is a cesspool of hell. Jesus Christ, it's so bad. It's so bad. So every once in a while I may look at the comments and just troll somebody or block them, because my block game's strong. But for the most part, I just don't engage, especially since I know how many bot farms there are. I mean, we've engaged in conversations globally in bipartisan ways. The Republicans won't talk about it, where a number of our modern day democracies are concerned about what usually China and Russia are doing, and they're usually using social media to interfere and to create kind of this environment. So I know that a lot of it is not real. But what they do is they're creating, again, kind of this alternate reality for some people, and it is becoming so real to the extent that there are people that get activated. Also, I'm a gun-toting Texan. I've never shied away from telling people that I got guns. So they can't ever be like, oh, she's one of them Democrats. I got a license to carry. That's number one. But also, I come from a lineage of people that I know that they didn't risk their lives for me to then be able to be in a position of power and to be afraid. So we're very thoughtful. Poor Capitol Police is overwhelmed because of all the threats that kind of come in on so many of us. But, and frankly, I trust Capitol Police, but I don't know how I trust some of these other agencies like the FBI, who would be charged with doing kind of the prosecutorial side of like investigations. Like basically Capitol Police is kind of like your police, they'll do enough, and then they should technically be turning cases over to the FBI. And then, ultimately the DOJ should be indicting. So like that's kind of, it's the follow through for me on those pieces that is pretty concerning. But I have told people over and over that, they are not providing us the security that we should have. They don't provide us any, actually. The only way that you get like a detail is if you are in leadership in the House. And it's only like the top 2 or 3 on the Democratic side, and then it's some people on the Republican side. It has nothing to do with your threat level at all. It has everything to do with if you're in leadership. And so I have to raise money. But I'm always just so encouraged because, as I've told so many of my supporters, like, I've got your back and it's clear that you've got mine. And so those small dollar donations, they are adding up, but like literally it's the people that are keeping me safe. And yeah.
So look, I think we can and need to hold 2 conflicting thoughts in our heads at the same time. One, Greene is not some saint because she managed to acknowledge objective reality about Donald Trump's danger after years of emboldening him as he deployed the exact same tactics. But we also need to recognize that this is all not church or temple or marriage. This is politics. And politics at its core is about cobbling together coalitions. So if Greene wants to speak out against the dangerous tactics of her party and her president, recognizing that she can effectively reach people that those of us on the left can't reach, then I think there's always room to allow more bedfellows, bizarre though they may be. Because if even a few people recognize who Trump and Republicans truly are by virtue of Greene's posts, then at the end of the day, it's worth amplifying. Before you go, if you enjoyed this content and you want to see more and support independent media, please subscribe to this channel. The subscribe button will be right here on the screen. But second, the reality is that we are now in a political environment where this administration can lean on any of the social media platforms to suppress certain voices if they don't like critical coverage. That means my longevity here is in the hands of a few tech billionaires who are already making it clear that they are willing to cater to this administration. To that end, signing up for my newsletter is a way for me to reach you directly if that ever becomes necessary. I'll put the link right here on the screen as well, so please sign up. It's free, but there's also an option to do a paid subscription if you'd like to support me and my team. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching.